Great seeing you, man. Congratulations
Very
on
good to see you.
Conclave.
Thank you
You
so
too.
much. Good to see
Yeah,
you.
man. It's been a hell of a journey since I saw you back in the mountains of Telluride when the film had its world premiere. Now it's being embraced by audiences, reviled by some members of the Catholic Church in some cases, and drawing all these
Perished by others.
parallels. I was gonna say, yeah, not by everybody, yeah, but it's igniting conversation and also getting to look at here in the States, at least, at our own political process of elections. I know that this is a film right now that has a lot of timeliness tied to it, and not just for the US, but all over the world. It seems like the electoral process of going about voting somebody into a position of power, it seems like that process is one that um, is hanging in the balance for a lot of countries and is something that uh, the democratic way of making a selection is at risk, let's say.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
So, yeah.
Yes, yes. What do you want me to answer? I think you're
Oh,
absolutely
no, no, no. No.
I
I
can
was just
only
starting off
agree.
with that. I was gonna just say though, I know for you guys, you told me previously that you didn't want this to be directly tied to the US and our political like process for elections, but the
Well,
movie does make some references and some jokes to that. So can you tell me like trying to capture like that universality of how do we tell a story that is about an electoral process but does not call out a single country, if you will?
I mean, I think it is universal in terms of, yes, of course, it makes references to the US, which we
Hmm.
couldn't know because when we shot the movie, there was no election yet, but it happens to
Right.
be. But, as it is universal, I think for many sort of positions of power, when the throne is empty, when the presidential office is like empty and to be taken, when the Pope's throne is vacant, there are people who are going to take out their knives and they're going to go after this position to get power. And it's a coveted job, and people want that job, and they're going to go after each other. But there's certain jokes, for example, in the U.S., there's big laughter when someone says, when they have sort of a conspiratorial meeting in the corridor, and the character says, what do you want us to go for the least worst option?" And that seems to resonate, especially in the US. But also, I would say the political class, I mean, it's such a difficult job to become a politician. When I grew up, we still had sort of post-war politicians, that
Mhm.
was the generation before me. And they wanted to build up the world. They wanted to rebuild the world. They had a purpose. Now, you know, business makes so much money, it's very difficult to lure politicians. You have to really have a calling, very much like a filmmaker. And so, not many qualified people go into politics. And I think I'm kind of missing the people that we had when we grew up, those people who did it for a calling, for a reason they wanted to be public servants. Those people are very rare these days. It's mostly
Yeah.
for egotistical reasons. And that is a universal truth. It is certainly the truth where I come from. Germany just dissolved its government and
Yeah.
they're going to re-elect now. And I don't really, we have the same problem, the least worst option, who are you going to vote for? And,
Right.
but anyway, so I think it's a global truth, a global sort of movement in terms of politics and the electoral process and doubts in doubters about democracy and all these things. So I think people just recognize that with their daily lives, with the news that they watch on TV, but it doesn't feel like the news. It feels like a movie. It's once removed.
Right.
It's not in Washington, D.C. It's in the Vatican, which we know nothing about, and we can learn something about it. So it's always nice when you can transpose our reality into a movie world that we don't know so much about.
Speaking of not knowing so much about the Vatican, obviously the Vatican is, well, I'm not even going to say picky and choosy. They just let nobody film there pretty much at all. So you have to recreate these sets from scratch, which I always find to be extremely impressive whenever I see a film or a television show that takes place in this setting. Can you tell me a little bit about just the detail that has to go into some of those recreations? Because obviously, even though no one has been allowed inside to film, there is references and photos and such that you have at your disposal to recreate this.
Yeah, and we did. I mean, I did a lot of Vatican tours to get
Hmm.
inspired and to get ideas and to know what we're talking about. And yet, I wanted to create it slightly differently. I wanted to create a feeling that, we're making a movie, so we have the license to design our movie. And our conscious choice was, I mean, you're going to have the ecclesiastical buildings, the old, the archaic. But as you can see from the movie, I was really interested in the contrast with modernity, with vaping, with iPhones, and bringing these people down to earth, making them like
Yeah.
one of us, because I do, we're all the same. They're cardinals, but they're not holy. They still have their mistakes, and so I wanted to give them the props that we have in the like phones and cigarettes and stuff like that, and although you shouldn't be smoking, as we all know, but they do in the movie, and then the same with the architecture. So we have the ecclesiastical buildings. We found those in and around Rome, old palaces, courtyards. We built the Sistine Chapel in Cinecittà, and right next to it, as a contrast, so to speak, to make it feel like it's like the modern and like a jail. I built the Casa Santa Marta, with basically the hotel where the cardinals live, like a jail. I wanted to feel it. I wanted you to feel you're in a conclave, like it's confined and constrict and claustrophobic, and the walls have ears. And when Rafe is in his room, all we can hear is the hum of a neon light and his breath. It's very sparse, this room, very, Spartan. And and then so that it feels like a liberation when in the end he opens the curtains and the sun comes back in and life comes back in and he is, you know, female laughter and that comes in. And that just, was supposed to give us a lift, like so almost a relief. Oh, finally, we're out of this conclave and we're liberated and the future can begin. So that was kind of the approach that we took. So we took a lot of license in terms of modernizing it. But of course, the basis of it, you're supposed to not feel that.
Yeah. So following All Quiet on the Western Front, which was a huge success, Academy Award winner for international feature, you became an Oscar nominee with this film as well. What kind of a pressure does that put on you then for the follow-up film? Because I've heard you say that you wanted to do something that completely challenged you, scared you. I can't remember the word you used, but you wanted to really
Exactly
push
right.
yourself with the follow-up.
Well, every time, you want to be scared of a movie. You want to feel like
Hmm.
I don't know how to do this. I might really fail at this, so that you excel and that you wake up every morning excited and fear can drive you and doubt can drive you very much like in Rafe's character in the movie. And so that was like an important part in terms of picking the film. But you know what? I picked the film before the Academy Award, so
Oh,
there was no pressure in terms of that. And in fact, so I shot this movie in January through March of 2020. When was the Oscars? 2023.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or 22. No, I think it was
So it
23.
must have been like right as that whole season was coming to a close, basically.
I was promoting All Quiet while I shot the movie. So
Yeah.
it was really sort of schizophrenic in terms of my focus, and I tried to compartmentalize. But and sometimes during that period, I thought, "Oh, I wish I could just concentrate on the release of All Quiet, celebrate this, how warm the world received the movie." Celebrate, the festivals, the journeys, the travels with the crew. I mean, I had my entire crew always with me, and that is so gratifying when you're not alone. When you're traveling
Yeah.
with your compatriots, basically your people who you made the movie with. And and then I suddenly realized, you know what? It's great. I already picked the movie. There's no pressure on it. So I don't
Nice.
have to decide after the Oscar what am I going to be doing next. I've already made that choice and it's done. So it was a great relief. And now I'm so happy that I made that choice at the time that I made it.
Yeah, seems like you just completely avoided like any, like you said, doubt or uncertainty that might have crept its
Oh,
way in.
I certainly didn't avoid that. You know, you're ridden by doubt, but still, I just jumped, and then you just have to jump. You can't suddenly decide, oh, I want to get back up on that board.
Yeah. Of course. So as the film has been released now, like I said, it's been received really warmly by the rest of the world. One of the things that is being called out again is the music by Volker Bertelmann, who did All Quiet on the Western Front, won an Oscar for that. And I noticed that there are similarities between that film score and this film score as well. And I talked with Volker, and he's very excited to be continuing his partnership with you. Can you tell me just a little bit about when you have like that one member of your crew that you're just in sync with and that you know is like, because there's a lot of directors out there who work with the same people, film to film to film. What is it about Volker that keeps you, the two of you coming back to each other?
I mean, I have a whole crew now that I feel I can, you can rely on. Volker is one of them. Lizzie Crystal, the costume designer, is
Hmm.
such an important collaborator. James Friend, the cinematographer, is part of my life. They're friends, and they're inspired. I get inspired by them. They're like true friends, and we drive each other to try to make better work. I mean, Lizzie and James and Volker all drive me, and hopefully I drive them. And
Yeah,
that's basically the essence of this collaboration with Volker. We always say, let's do something that we've never made before. Let's make it feel different than the last movie. And yet, we can't escape ourselves. We're going to have something within ourselves that hope, that you might recognize as a thematic, uh, um, element of ourself. And one of it is that I like the images and the music to clash. I don't want it to be
yeah,
underscoring an emotion. I want it to be like hit you in the face in a way,
yes,
and kind of attack you so that it wakes you up and go like, oh, what's
yes,
this? I thought this was a Pope movie. It feels different than a Pope movie. That
right.
kind of feeling, to create excitement in the audience and to create sort of a curiousness of where this might go, like an unexpected feeling. That was the main goal.
Yeah. I love,
And I'm
yeah,
sorry, forgot one important thing. The main thing is also to 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 take the score from whatever is in the character's stomach to make it feel like it's something grumbling inside Rafe. So
which
that's
is
what.
accentuated especially in these like quieter moments like you said where the sound is really honed in on, and you can feel his breathing very heavily, and it really helps us to get into the headspace of that character. um
Mhm.
Kind of going off of though like something that I remember talking to you about previously. I remember telling you, oh man, this is like reminding me of all the things I love about House of Cards, Succession, Game of Thrones, just like political intrigue, backstabbing. I love all that. But you referenced to me that you really leaned on 70s political thrillers and the like. Can you tell me a little bit about just those influences and how they crept their way into Conclave?
Yeah, I mean, I learned so much. Hopefully, I learned from Pikula. I think he's a really masterful filmmaker. I mean, you'd have a movie like Parallax View. Warren Beatty
Yes,
will be in a wide shot, in the biggest star in the 70s, right? And he'll be in a wide shot with his back producer on the movie. So really a powerful person to deal with. He'll be in a wide shot with his back to us for 2 minutes, and then Pakula cuts around at the right moment to show his face. Not even a close up, just a mid shot. And that really, I noticed when I watch these movies, I lean in. I wanna know. Oh, now he's cutting. I mean, you kind of subliminally notice it. He's showing me Warren Beatty's face. There's an accent on that line, like, and he cuts at exactly the right line so that he directs like a true director. He directs the audience's gaze. He doesn't only direct the actors and the crew. He directs my gaze, takes me by the hand, and shows me this is important. This is atmosphere. This is, and I get lost in his way and the simplicity with which he makes the movies. And basically, it's static wide shots. A
yeah.
lot. and people move around in the frame, and he cuts very little. And we try to take that as much as possible. Times have changed. The expectation to a movie's pace have changed a little bit, but I want it by the darkness, by the light and shadow, by the pace. We never really used a shot twice. Nick
Yeah.
Emerson and I, the editor, really tried to be very specific of when we cut around and when we used the close up and how we went through, Rafe's head. I mean, the movie pretty much works in terms of it's all on Rafe's POV. So we go a lot in on, his emotion, his face, but spare others. We don't show others that much. Others are usually wider. So that all that pacing, that deliberate editing, the right choice of when to make a cut, and not to overcut. When we have this dialogue, you'd usually just go to like boom, 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 cut back and forth. And we didn't do that. We maybe during this conversation, we maybe cut once,
Yeah.
1 minute on my face, a minute on your face. That's it. And that way you can sort of get lost more in the characters, in the actors' faces, and see their change of emotion. That very much is, I think, Pecula.
Yeah, I think so too. Cardinal Lawrence makes a decision towards the end of the film to cast a vote for himself. I'm curious to know from you, do you think that this is because he feels that he is the best option to win in that moment? Or is it because deep down, even though he's telling everybody he doesn't want it, he might actually want it?
He's the least worst option in that moment. Yeah. No, I think, even he, the most humble, sort of unambitious sort of guy who likes to stay in the background, even he succumbs to the temptation of power in that moment. I think even he thinks like maybe, in the case of the cardinals, it's God, the Holy Spirit selecting supposedly the cardinal. And even he thinks like maybe he did think it's for me. It's my turn.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm the right person. I think he succumbs to that sense of ambition just like everyone else but he gets punished for it just later,
Yes. No,
when
he
he
definitely
casts it.
does.
He
It's
was
like
wrong.
divine intervention,
Fine intervention.
not just with the attack
Yeah.
on the church, but then also who the actual pope ends up becoming as well. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's very, very, very fascinating because as we're, going through times right now where we're discussing man's ambition and how it is all just driven by power, it seems that those kinds of leaders who don't want to lead, and the ones who don't are usually the best ones for the job, but they, like you said earlier, seem to be just in short supply. So I think that a film like this, I choose to look at this movie through a view of optimism, and I think that the film definitely sends us out on an uncertain but optimistic note of, okay, you guys say you wanted this. You say you want this kind of progressive quality moving forward. Now we're really going to test that and see how far we can push that at this point. Um, I wanted to end by saying, Edward, I know that you are working on your next film right now, The Ballad of a Small Player. Um, and I know that you're working with Volker again and a couple of other collaborators. Is there anything you could tell us that we can like look forward to with this upcoming work?
Um, yeah, first of all, just to respond to your
Yeah,
hopefulness, Conclave. I mean, I think to me that movie, I mean, I'm an eternal optimist, and that movie is optimistic in the end. There's a glimmer of hope. There's a crack in the old patriarchal system of the church, which is the oldest one in the world. I would say much older than whatever we experience around us every day. And in the end, that system, that institution has a crack, and Rafe sees it, and there's a light coming through it, and
yeah,
like light, and it's a symbol of hope, I think. So, anyway, the future is going to be eventually good again. And in terms of Ballad of a Small Player, it's a movie I shot in Macau with Colin Farrell, Tilda Swinton, and Fala Chen in the main roles. Three fantastic actors, and it's basically a story about Colin's character, having embezzled money in England and having fled to Macau, he, succumbs to the temptations of gambling, and he's a gambling addict, and so he just
Yeah.
throws his money out the window and just goes through a wild ride of temptation. And it's in the end, it's kind of a swan song to to the depth of to the abyss of capitalism in this case, where you have everything in Macau, and yet, there's very little that stays, very little.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway, that's what the movie is.
Well, there's one thing I know for sure. I know it's going to be different than Conclave and All Quiet on the Western Front, but still retaining that same level of quality. Because, sir, I think you're in a really, really special time in your career right now, and I can't congratulate you enough on the success that has come your way so far, and what is to come, hopefully.
Thank you so much. It's very kind. It means a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. It's great seeing you again.
Of course. Thank you. Take care, Matt.
Take care.